So to give another parallel, because when you initially described the good impulses there, is that good mature Christians should make good leaders, and if we're if we're making decisions about leaders of our government, why not put good Christian leaders in there? And you can make arguments on either side of that. It does occur to me that we just buried one such person who was considered, I think by all accounts, a pretty bad president for various reasons, depending on how you analyze presidencies. It's difficult to tell what makes a good president because everybody talks about, oh, they were a horrible president, right? Mm-hmm. But even when I was a kid, I remember adults talking about how horrible President Jimmy Carter was. But everybody raves about him as a mature Christian, and his what was the name of his speech he gave? The Malaise speech, right? Where he was just calling people to essentially mature Christian behavior. He didn't say it had to be Christian behavior, but he was calling Americans to quit being selfish and start thinking about their neighbors and start thinking about the land, creation, the use of creation, and excessive use and abuse of the land. So I wonder, is Jimmy Carter our role model for what Christian nationalism looks like?
Great question. So underneath this question is the question of worldly power and kingdom of God power. So the power of the sword and the power of the cross. So there is a question that I think every follower of Jesus is faced with, and that is the use of sword power something to be exercised in the name of the cross? And we've been wrestling with that as a community for 1,700 years. When the church is a oppressed minority, it's not really a prominent question writ large. It is a question in the home. It's a question in what we would call the business. Once that home business thing got separated in human history, and it's how are you going to behave when you've been given some level of worldly power. And the Philippians chapter 2 example of Jesus to not consider the equality with God something to be grasped onto, but rather taking on the form of a servant. So how do we do that if we're the mayor? And a question that we have is, what about when we get invited into positions of power that do things that are not good, like inherently not good? Not saying it's not, quote unquote, justified or the wisest, most loving decision you can make. But you take like a doctor and the conversation that we have about, okay, it's either going to be the mom or the baby, but somebody's going to die here. And that doctor is faced with not good decisions.
Right.
The president is faced with decisions like, are we going to drone strike a person? That's not family.
Yeah, that's actually the more common occurrence.
Are we going to deprive aid for AIDS relief in order to pressure someone to give us more oil rights? These are not good questions and not good. And what I mean when I say not good, it's not on earth as it is in heaven. That's not a question that we're going to ask in the new heavens and new earth. It's not the way we would be behaving in Eden. That's what I mean when I say that. And so the question for every Christian is how do I make decisions when it's not good? I have to kill somebody, or I'm being invited to sign a document that says send this person to the electric chair or lethal injection, whatever. So that's just a fundamental question, that what do we do with worldly power? Then the question is, okay, if a Christian discerns it's my conviction that I am being invited by God to execute worldly power, that does not then therefore mean that every decision they make is in alignment with the teachings of Jesus. Right? Like a Christian behaving does not make the behavior Christian. And so I kick against the category.
Just like music performed by Christians
Drew, you and I think, grew up in roughly the same era.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there was this huge thing in the 90s, I think, like the CCM movement, and especially like punk bands and metal bands, that they were Christian. They'd be like, well, we are Christians in a band. We're not a Christian band.
Right, right, exactly.
I think, feel like
Sixpence None the Richer
I was just going to
the
say
pop
Sixpence,
version of
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then there, of course, like every cool youth pastor wanted you two to be Christian. You know, they're like, well, we
Yeah.
know, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
so
the
went to
Edge,
seminary with a
Bono,
lot of those dudes.
right. So we're to it. This question of, does a Christian make a good leader? Well, that being a Christian doesn't make you a good leader. I lead a church. I know a lot of Christians that like, there's folks that we won't let run the coffee machine because they're not, they're not
Yeah,
built for that.
yeah,
They're built for other things. And I kick against the idea that, like, the language of Christian president. Okay, yeah, that person says that they have a faith in Jesus. So Jim is a Christian. His presidency is his job, and that is something, and so he's executing things. If he starts saying, as a Christian, I'm making this decision to bomb, whoa, we're off the rails. Like,
God came to me last night and told me to annihilate this city.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, emperors have been doing forever.
right.
You
Yeah,
know? Like,
not new.
I got a special line to the divine, and
I mean,
yeah,
there were
so-
popes who literally claimed this. So yeah,
oh yeah, yeah. I tried it once at a board meeting at church, and it just did not.
did you
land.
pretend to get a call? Like, oh, who's calling?
Yeah,
It's God.
I have like a special phone,
Yeah,
like the God
I should
phone.
a red phone. Yeah,